Hi, Livio here. So, I was thinking about doing a video on the topic of vocational awakening. Now, most of us think of awakening in the context of spirituality, a spiritual awakening, right? But also, the topic of creative awakening makes sense as we awaken spiritually. So, they kind of go in hand together, because as we awaken spiritually, we basically wake up to a spiritual reality. So we wake out of the illusion, the idea that we are these physical beings alone. And so we wake out of that dream that we are just physical beings into the spiritual reality that we are actually souls, or even spirit itself, consciousness itself, or even freedom overall. So spiritual awakening reveals a deeper truth, a deeper reality that we used to dismiss beforehand. So we wake out of a dream and we wake into or up to a reality that is more truthful, more, you could say, intelligent and harmonious. So it's the same with vocation and creativity. We could say that we wake out of the idea and the conditioning that we have to work, to survive, to sacrifice for money, and into the reality that we are already creative beings with certain creative capacities, and we just have to let them ripen by following our joy, by following our curiosity and our fascinations and our interests. So when we wake out of the pressures, the external pressures to survive and make money and sacrifice, and also the internal pressures that we want to succeed and we want to become somebody and we want to create a dream life, those as well can be pressures. So if we wake out of those dreams, external and internal, the dream of survival, the dream of success, then we wake up to the reality of who you already are. We wake up to our innate vocation, the creative nature that we already are. And it's like a creative seed, certain capacities, certain, you could say, talents that are already part of who we are, and we just realize that they are inherent to us, and we just need to let them flower and blossom into a more, you could say, tangible creative expression in the world. So just like a spiritual awakening, a vocational awakening is something that reveals a reality that's already the case. We were just unaware of, we were just dismissing beforehand. We were kind of lost in a certain more confused way of seeing things. So with a vocational awakening, we basically wake up to the fact that our creativity is already the case, and again, we just need to nurture it and cultivate it by getting the mind and the fears and the pressures out of the way and simply letting ourselves be moved by our curiosity, our creativity, our joy, our natural interests. What I've come to call, we nurture our creativity as when we follow the trail of our joy. So where our joy leads us, it allows for our creativity to mature, for our capacities to be developed and ripen into a certain type of more tangible contribution. So you could say that in a more tangible sense, we could say that we are a creative seed already. So we wake up to the reality that we are a creative seed with a certain potential, you could say. And then this seed is actually existing already within the soil of life and life's creativity and life's intelligence. Life is like the ground, the soil in which we exist. And it nurtures us as we surrender, as we let the fear go. So it's kind of like Jesus described the kingdom of heaven. So when he was asked, Master, describe for us what is the kingdom of heaven, how would you define that? And he said, look, the kingdom of heaven is like a person who plants a seed in the ground, and then the seed grows, but men know not how. So that's the kingdom of heaven. It's that which makes things grow, but we know not how. That's the soil that nurtures, that's life, right? It's the intelligence of life, the flow of life, which nurtures all the beings that we are, and we know not how, because we may not understand. Of course, when we have a bit more metaphysical and spiritual awareness and knowledge, we may begin to realize and see how it actually happens. Just like, in agriculture, when you study the soil, then you begin to understand how the seed grows, how the soil nurtures through minerals and so on, and allows the seed to grow. So it's the same with creativity. When we begin having this vocational awakening, we realize we basically wake out of the dream and the external conditioning that we have to sacrifice to survive or strive to succeed. So we wake out of those dreams and into the reality that's already the case, which is that we are already innately creative. We have an innate vocation, whatever that is, and this seed that we are already exists within a spiritual context, which we could call the soil, the divine soil, the divine ground, or the intelligent flow of life. And then, as we become aware of that, a kind of third element here is that we want to pluck the weeds that come up, which is the fears and insecurities that come up and almost suffocate the development and the growth of this seed that we are within the soil that life is. So the mind, the egoic mind, which wants to control things, wants to do the safe thing, is looking always for security, not necessarily for authenticity. So the work is, in a sense, it's recognizing these weeds that come up and plucking them out, cleaning the soil around the creative seed that we are. And then maybe a fourth element would be, as we grow, as this seed begins to become a little bit of a plant and begins to grow, then the fourth element would be we follow the light. So that's a metaphor, right? We follow the light of our joy or curiosity, or what interests us, and we let our attention be pulled by that. And that's how we grow and blossom over a period of time. So that's a bit of an analogy, a metaphor, right, for what we wake up to. So we wake out from the pressures, the conditioning that we are this, just physical beings who need to, strive to survive in this world or strive to succeed. And we wake up to this reality that I've just described now, that kind of makes sense to me, that we are already these creative seeds, and we already exist within the divine soil, and all we really have to do is to pluck away the fears and insecurities and the doubts that come up, and just let ourselves be moved by the light, to follow the light like a plant would. So that's the reality that we wake up to as we go through this, what I've come to call a vocational awakening. And to give you a simple story for how this showed up for me, I would say that I've been going through vocational awakening for many years. Now I'm 34, but ever since I was maybe 20, I was in university studying marketing in Denmark, and I was working in food deposits there just as a student to make ends meet. And I was listening to a book called Discover Your Element, I think, by Sir Ken Robinson, or Living in Your Element or something like that, which was encouraging the fact that we can do work we love, not just work that makes money. There's some noise here. So I was working in these food deposits and learning about the possibility of doing something you love, not just doing something that brings in the money. And I would say that that's when my initial vocational awakening began, and I realized that I was passionate about relationships and ended up starting a blog on relationships. Yeah, there's some noise. So I started a blog on relationships. I started a blog on relationships, and I did that for the following 5, 6, maybe 10 years. I was writing about long-distance relationships and working with men and helping them become secure guys, secure men, who are not approaching love from a needy, codependent place, which was kind of ruining their partner's interests and ruining their love life. So I began having my first vocational awakening around when my early 20s, and then that matured into discovering more and more that my creative nature is simply working with ideas. With ideas, it's not necessarily just the topic of relationships. But it's kind of a philosophical, creative nature that I have, more spiritual, philosophical, and really working with ideas and looking for truth, and also spiritual liberation. So, maybe like 6 years ago, I let go of my coaching work in the area of relationships, and entered this kind of transition and more focused spiritual process. I let go of my old relationships. I was in a relationship for like 9 years, almost 10. So let go of the relationship, let go of the coaching work 6 years ago, and enter this transition that I see now as this transition from egoic living to Tao-led living, letting life live me. And I would say that my vocational awakening has been getting deeper and deeper, kind of maturing. And what I'm trying to say is that I've come to a point a few years ago where it became so clear to me what this awakening, this vocational creative awakening is about. It became clear that, work is just being who we are, and it's just how our being manifests in the world. How, when we are just being who we are, this creative nature, this creative seed that we are, just ends up manifesting and blossoming and flowering in the world, and that's what work is. So, in a sense, work is not something that you do; it's something that life does as you, and you just surrender to this process. So I was, just to tell you a brief story and kind of round up this conversation. I was in Italy a few years ago, and spending some time at my father's place with his family, and of course my father is a bit more traditional and in his thinking, and he was watching me and seeing me that I'm not doing seemingly anything with my life at that time. And he would ask, for example, so what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about doing for work? And usually I would just say, I don't know, we'll see. I'm still figuring it out. But then as I was reflecting on that question, I was on a walk one day, and that kind of question came up that I remembered from my father, like, what are you thinking to do for work? And the answer that kind of came through and cut through all the conditioning, through all these ideas of what I should be doing and so on, or what I want to be doing, because as you see, conditioning is external but also internal. It's our egoic mind that wants to do something, aspires to be somebody. So in that moment, on that walk, the answer cut through all that and said, well, what do you mean? What should I do for work? I'm being myself. What else? Right? It was so clear, and I would say that was the culmination point of my vocational awakening, which again started when I was 20 and started aligning me with my creative nature. But I would say that the culmination point, or the last moment of that awakening, was when it cut through everything, and I just saw it so clearly, so lucidly, that what do you mean? What should I do for work? What will I do for work? I'm just being myself. And like, what else? I'm being what I am already, which is my own creative nature, this nature of working with ideas, and going for long walks, going for coffees, and listening to spiritual materials and reflecting on life and writing about spirituality and thinking about how life works from this spiritual perspective. That's what my work is. What else? I mean, for somebody else, they might be more mechanically minded, for example, and they might be an engineer or do that kind of work. For somebody else, they're more relationally minded. That's their creative nature. They might work with people. They could be teachers or nurses or HR people, or other people are more again intellectual, and they can work as well in some kind of teaching position or with information. Other people may be more, we can have different kinds of gifts. There's actually a really good resource called in the book called I think Work Reimagined by David, I forget his name, but just Google the book Work Reimagined. He also has a book, I forget his name. He also has a book, Life Reimagined. But I really like, this guy is a coach. He's like 60, 70 now, and he's been doing this work helping people find their purpose and live their purpose for like 40 years. So he really knows what he's talking about. And in this book, he actually shares a list of different creative natures we could have, something like 40 different examples. Things like synthesizing information, fixing things, facilitating clarity, or facilitating reconciliation between people. So there are different, like very small phrases like that kind of point to different creative natures. And I found that very, very useful at kind of working with that list and maybe extracting 5 and then maybe 1 or 2 that resonate with us the most, and they become kind of like a permission, like a simple label that helps us understand who we are creatively. So that said, when I had that moment of clarity during my walk in Italy, it was so simple, it was so obvious that, when we're lost in conditioning, like external conditioning, that we have to sacrifice for money, that we have to do things that maybe bring us some kind of validation, or that, the internal conditioning that we have to be productive, we have to do something with our life, we don't want to feel stuck, we don't want to waste our life. When we kind of drop all that away, what remains is who you are already, and that begins to, and as you follow your joy, the trail of your joy, your curiosity, and you pluck away the weeds and the doubts, then that begins to mature. And I would say that we actually end up entering a kind of transition from conforming to this conditioning that we usually conform to. So we kind of enter a transition from conformity to creativity, to authentic creativity, or from security to creativity, to authenticity and alignment. And that transition may take time, may take months, years, as we will learn to be guided by our truth and nurture, cultivate our creativity. That's the reality of it, is that we are already creative, and we have an innate vocation, but it may take time for it to ripen and mature into some kind of tangible contribution in the world. But besides that, besides getting getting into the reality of it, the simplicity of it is that, that's, I would say, that the most liberating and simplest and accurate way of seeing work and creativity is that there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to be other than what we already are. So we wake up to the essential creativity that's already the case. So that glimpse of insight that happened for me was that, what else? Like, what do you mean? What am I going to do for work? I'm being myself. What else? And that will continue and develop into some kind of contribution, and then remuneration, because you're making a difference in people's lives. But yeah, that's kind of the big topic, and I hope it gave you a workable perspective on the topic of creativity, and how it actually is seen from a more spiritual perspective. That and actually a bit of a framework, this idea that we are a seed within life's soil, and we just pluck away the fears and follow the guidance of our joy, or follow the light. So yeah, hope this makes sense, and if you have questions, feel free to write them in the comments, and I'll probably develop these ideas and share them in different ways in future materials. All right, cheers and take care.